Hey guys, what's up? This is Lisa Barrows, and you are listening to The Bolder Side of Wellness, the podcast where we're going to give you little pebbles by talking through staff in our facility, Plymouth Fitness, as well as outside local professionals to help you live your best life. Before we get into our episode today, if you could just pause, go follow us on our socials at The Bolder Side of Wellness on Instagram. We're also on YouTube and anywhere you get your podcasts. We'd really appreciate it. We want to spread the word and help people to live the best they can. In today's episode, I'm going to be talking with Mitch Hennings on the best way to live your healthy lifestyle, but as well as tips and tricks to help you win our program going on right now called Mission Slimpossible. Mitchell is an ex-college athlete, which he will get into, and our newest personal trainer. He came from being a member at our club to one of our most in-demand trainers. So has really risen up, learned a lot about health, fitness throughout his years of being an athlete. So we're gonna chat about tricks and tips on how to lose weight and body fat and live your best life. Guys, I want to welcome my guest today. This is Mitch Hennings. Mitch is our newest personal trainer. Yeah, you're still our newest.
Yep.
Joined us
September August area, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm going to let him talk a little bit about his journey and what brought him to Plymouth Fitness.
Yeah. So I have played sports my whole life. I started playing, college football, and I did that for 3 years, and I got into lifting and kind of being around, higher level strength and conditioning, and it was really, really fun, and I really enjoyed it. I went to school and got a degree in environmental science. Obviously, I'm not, using that right now.
Sorry, English lit, it's fine.
Right. So, I tried the environmental science for, 2 years, worked outside, did a lot of trail work. It wasn't for me. And then, I decided I had to pivot. And then I, went and tried to go to school for physical therapy assistant. And then I was a CNA for a year, which wasn't that fun.
Yeah.
And then I was just training super hard, and I had wanted to be a trainer. I had kind of been dealing with the thought of it, and then Nate had approached me and was like, do you want to be a trainer? And I was like, absolutely. And then the rest is kind of history, and that's where I am right now.
Right, yeah, you started as a newbie trainer to very busy now, which is awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And we have similar backgrounds.
Yeah,
D3 athlete, worked at trampoline parks, weight loss camps, and then found Plymouth Fitness, so it's okay.
Yeah.
It's how it works. All right. And so kind of what's your training philosophy and what do you like to really focus on with your clients?
Mm-hmm. So my personal training philosophy is, it has a few facets. I really believe in resistance training, weightlifting. I think that's probably one of the biggest drivers for body change rather than doing, whether it's just cardio or you're just doing HIIT classes or you're just doing this. I think having more of an all-encompassing approach is probably a lot better, and having that grounded in resistance training. There's just been, so many studies that have come out that have shown that, resistance training increases longevity by, X amount. I don't obviously have the papers in front of me.
Yeah, no worries.
But yeah, so it's grounded in resistance training, and then I also really enjoy the idea of being generally prepared. And what that kind of means is just being able to run, jump, throw, move how you want to, when you want to, right? Kind of just everybody can be an athlete. It's not just for, you and me.
Right.
Somebody who's been an athlete previously.
Right. Well, even I'm a little older than you. I'm now 16 years out of college basketball, I think, if that math's correct. So, not feeling trapped in your body, because I've gone through phases where I don't feel like I can move like I used to, too.
Absolutely.
So, still feeling like you can move and do everything you need to do.
Yeah, that's super important, because, as we get older, we stop moving how we used to as children, and, you kind of look at how kids play, and that's kind of how we need to emulate our training sometimes. It's that's how we used to play, and we used to run around. Because there's going to be times when you're going to be called upon to move faster than you normally would, or to sprint, or, what have you, and you need to be able to do those things.
Yeah, or just keep up with your kids.
Absolutely.
Yeah, awesome. So that's kind of a good segue is to, right now in the club, we're doing this program, as you know, Mission Slimpossible. So 6 weeks, we're in about a week and a half in. To biggest body fat percent change, and there is a big cash prize, but really this is a huge goal for myself always, for my clients and everything, is to have a healthy body fat percentage and good muscle in order to do this. So let's talk a little bit about the difference between weight loss competitions versus what we're doing with body fat percentage.
Yeah, for sure. So for like a weight loss competition, I really think those are rooted in just losing weight, and that's kind of it's nondescript.
Right.
So, and that could be like if you were to lose just for a weight loss competition, just to lose weight, you'd be losing muscle mass and also, body fat as well.
Right. And water.
Yeah. Exactly. And like with the, the technology that we have available to us through the InBody, we're really able to key in on that percent body fat, which we're really trying to, make a point.
Right.
And the difference between a weight loss competition and what we're doing, right, is we're really looking at percent body fat change, which can be achieved through increased muscle mass, and that your weight could go up, but you could still have reduced percent body fat,
right,
or you could lose weight and have, some muscle gain, and that could be how you achieve success.
Yeah, 100%. I think a lot of times when people are working towards a certain physique, they automatically go to scale weight because that's the easiest measurement from home.
Yeah.
You can jump on your scale every day. You can buy one at Target for $20, but there is a lot more, especially when it comes to composition and how you want to look aesthetically, that muscle growth is actually a huge part of that.
For sure, yeah.
And I think especially maybe that's like newer and people are getting into that more now, where weight training is the way to go. But back in the day, it was, especially for women, be small, be thin, scale weight, and not to have that muscle tone in there.
Yeah, for sure. And, I think that was just, kind of, with the times. We really, even within the past, I feel 5 years, we've come so far in our understanding of, how the body works and, how, muscle growth works and what the actual benefits are. And I think a lot of that's kind of trickling over into the general population, which is really cool to see. I'm seeing, young kids and, especially young girls who love weightlifting and who are into it. And, they're just going to be that much healthier in their later years than, say, people, that were 20, 25 years before them.
Right. Yeah, I think a lot of people think of weight training as just more that bodybuilding style, too, of, aesthetics, big muscles, trying to get all that. But I don't think it's a lot of things I work with, because I tend to work with older clients, too. Hey, if you have more muscle and you fall, you're better protected in injury. That's so much more important than it was emphasized on. And I think that's just because we have a tendency to go all cardio, all weight training, and it's actually a mix of both that's our best.
Yeah, for sure. It's you can't, the body isn't in a vacuum.
Right.
Right? So, why would you just train one aspect and just completely ignore the other?
Right.
Right? You can still be a great bodybuilder and have a great physique and be able to run miles.
Right.
Or vice versa. If you're a marathon runner, you would probably do well to have some muscle on you to increase your endurance and reduce injury.
Right. So, no, I absolutely agree. Yeah. So, as far as weight training, you have a client that's coming up to you saying, look, I am looking to tone up, which is a common thing.
Yeah.
What is kind of your mentality when you're looking at that client?
If somebody were to come to me and tell me that they want to tone up, I would acknowledge the fact that they want to put on muscle, and they probably maybe have some preconceived notions about what that actually means. And it's not my job as a trainer to explain to them what the difference between toning up and putting on muscle means and getting bulky. I'm just there to help guide them, their understanding of what it really means to be healthy and to put on muscle and to tone up. But yeah, I would just treat them like, any other client, or like myself. Okay, then we're going to go lift weights and we're going to go have fun because that's what you want to do. Right?
Yep. And then a common misconception is when you start to lift weights, you're automatically going to get bulky. And it's something I deal with a lot, honestly, with anything, or they want to spot reduce or something like that.
Absolutely.
So those are big misconceptions. One, it's tough to get bulky. It takes a lot of work. We're both working on it.
It's a lot of work. Exactly. Everybody's oh, I don't want to get bulky. If I start lifting heavier, if I'm working with a client and I tell them you should probably put on a little bit more weight there, to make it challenging, to make it actually worth the lift, worth your time. And they're well, I don't want to get bulky. I'm you know, you would really have to eat a lot of food and you would have to train super hard for years.
And intentionally.
Exactly.
Yes.
Like, I tell them, I'm like, you're going to have to try
right.
to get bulky. Like, it's not just going to happen.
My favorite analysis to that was like, you don't just drive your car and become a NASCAR racer. It doesn't happen by accident. Right. It takes a lot of work and a lot of training.
Yeah.
So those people who are in bodybuilding competitions or all that is taken time, repetitions, and very specific diets and exercises.
Absolutely. Like those, if you look at those, they're athletes. And they're like the highest level of nutrition clients, and then the highest level of athletic performance. Like, they're not general population. Right. They're on a totally another level, and what they do is not what I would recommend for someone who's just looking to get healthy and to put on a little bit of muscle. Right,
exactly. But what you will get from weight training is feeling a little more defined, or that toned thing, feeling stronger, and just feeling better. That is like one thing. I used to be a cardio queen. I own that. I was. College basketball 20 years ago. We didn't do strength and conditioning, or very limited. So I was like, I gotta run. That's how I get in shape for basketball. I run. So my body hurt far more than it does now when I'm weight training, running, and doing all of that as well.
Yeah, and like it's really discouraging to see, especially in like women's sports too, like how they don't, weight training isn't emphasized, which is really unfortunate because it's not like you guys, your bodies are any different than mine. You know what I mean? Like hormones for sure, but in some things, but at the core of it, muscles wise, it's the same.
Well, and injuries are just as prevalent.
Exactly. Like, you know, it's really unfortunate because if you guys were to have the kind of weightlifting that men would have, injuries would be way down, performance would be up. Like it's. You know?
It's pretty common injury, especially in women's sports, ACLs. I've done it twice, so I'm one of those demographics. But it's typically a non-impact injury, and it was mine both. Well, the second one I came back too soon, but it was, I didn't have that proper like muscle around my knee either.
Sure.
Like that is important to have, but it was never a push.
No, for sure.
Yeah. So it's definitely something that we want to see more of, and they're starting to. I was glad to hear that my college, Bridgewater State, now has.
Which is pretty awesome.
Yeah, because they didn't when I was there. So it's great to see more of that.
Absolutely.
And I think another thing with weight training too is there's different ways to weight train for those different goals. There is strength weight training, there is putting hypertrophy on or muscle mass, and then there is endurance. So I want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so say you want to train for strength and you want to get really, really strong. So the way to do that is probably doing, you know, lower reps, higher weight, not really focusing on so much as, you know, putting muscle on. And I know that kind of sounds a little convoluted because it is, it's tough. But when you put on strength and you get stronger, it's more of your nervous system adapting to that kind of stimulus. So it's like a neurological adaptation.
Right.
If I'm able to recruit as much of my muscle that I have right now as possible to move the weight in front of me. Whereas when we're putting on muscle, we're trying to force the muscle to adapt to grow. And it's a little different. It's tough to kind of explain. But when we're going for hypertrophy, we want big ranges of motion. We want higher reps, you know, more focused workouts. Whereas if I'm going for strength, I'm just kind of picking up heavy things and putting them down or moving them around. To, you know, to get good at lifting heavy weight, you have to move heavy weight. And that's not necessarily true with putting on muscle.
Right. Yeah, and that's a big misconception when like, I want to get stronger, but I don't want to put on muscle mass. Well, that's actually possible.
Yes.
But it's hard to kind of take in if you just think, I lift weights to gain muscle. Because that's what you're told.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So weight training is a huge part of it. And there's nothing wrong with cardio. That's like one thing that, especially social media recently, is like demonizing cardio. Cardio is great. There's different ways to do it, and I definitely would never discourage you. I just don't think you should pigeonhole yourself in one type of workout.
Absolutely. Like you know, we're people and we're dynamic. Like we're not supposed to just be like, I just lift weights. Like I am a weightlifter or I am a runner. Like no, you're a person who needs to do a lot of different things at different times, and that's going to take different qualities.
Right.
You know, like I'm going to be a better lifter if I hit cardio 30 minutes for 5 times a week.
Right.
Like I'm going to be better. My body's going to be better at circulating blood. It's going to be better at operating properly, like just systemically overall. So like you said, like it's not good to pigeonhole yourself. Like you're not just one aspect, you're many things.
Right.
Right.
And then I get asked this a lot. I'm sure you do. What's like the best workout I can do or the best cardio?
Yeah, right.
My answer for cardio every time is the one you'll do. It's not my favorite thing anymore.
Yeah.
It's funny because that's all I used to do. But now, like, there's some I prefer, and then there's some when I have a time crunch, I'm going to go for higher intensity.
For sure.
But it's the ones I will do. I will not do the elliptical.
Yeah,
It's not for me.
I don't think I've ever touched the elliptical, to be honest.
It's just not for me. Post ACL surgery, it's like all I was allowed to do. So now I have a stigma around it.
Yeah, for
so
sure.
it's not the best for me. And that's the same for anybody. If you like to go for walks, that's fantastic. Do that cardio.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It really, like you said, it really is whatever you're going to do, and it's whatever you're going to do consistently. Like,
Right.
if you're first starting out and you can only go for a half-mile walk and that's all you can really tolerate,
It's awesome.
but you're able to do that 3
Right.
times a week, a little done a lot is better than a lot done a little, really.
Right.
So that's kind of my philosophy and how I look at it.
I love that. That's a great saying.
Mhm.
Awesome. So the other big thing when we're trying to lose body fat is food. And now there's all these things like 80-20, abs are made in the kitchen. It is a mix of both. Again, you don't do just one.
Yes.
So what is the tip, the key to weight loss?
That's kind of like a really big question.
Wouldn't you be super rich if you knew that?
Yeah,
Yes.
right? So it really is, it's like one of those like nuanced answers where like it depends. And
Yes.
I know that kind of like stinks and like people are like, well, I just want this one key or this one diet that's going to be perfect, and it's not. Right? Like, if it were, we wouldn't have jobs, right?
Yeah, I would be so rich.
Yeah. So there's a lot of things that go into, losing weight or becoming healthier. Like it's not just you picking a diet that you found on the internet and trying to stick to it because clearly like they're diets and they come up with new ones all the time. So they probably don't work. They might work for a little while.
Right.
And you might see some kind of change, but it's not going to be lasting. So there's a lot of things you have to consider when you're starting this journey. It's the physical, the mental, the environment that you're in, and also the social settings that you're in as well. They can all affect how you operate with your weight loss or with whatever your journey is that you're trying to accomplish, right? So when taking those things into consideration, it's really important to understand that you have to build skills and use habits to build those skills rather than just being like, I'm gonna hop on the keto diet or the Mediterranean diet, right? I know.
Sorry,
it's like a visceral response. I know. So like, for example, like if I were to help somebody with their nutrition coaching, and the first thing I would have them do is to collect data on what they are, because if you come to me and you ask me for nutrition help, I can't help you really because I don't know what you're eating.
Right.
I can't tell you if you have to, eat more protein or, add some fats in because I just don't know what you're eating.
Right. I think a lot of times too, a big part of this is being realistic with yourself of what you're eating. A lot of people know I work specifically with clients on this all the time, and the mindfulness of what we're actually eating, which we're perceiving we're eating, is two
100%.
different things.
People are so notorious with like underestimating how much they're eating and underestimating like what they're tracking. Like
right.
They're notoriously bad at it. So that's why it's important to like, that first week you're working with someone, just track your food objectively, just write it down.
Right.
Because then when you come to me in a week later, we're going to look at it and be like, okay, like you were actually eating quite a bit.
Right.
And you were having all these little hidden calories that you weren't thinking were a lot.
Right.
But they're adding up over time.
Yeah, do we know the actual, like, what the portions are, too? That's a big thing. We're not set up for success either, by any means. Portion sizes versus what we're served, what's in a box, and all that is not great. But a lot of it is being mindful. It is not cutting out a food group. It is not doing anything like that. It's just being aware. And even not changing what you're eating, but writing down your food is like a good way to be like, oh wow, either I'm only eating in the morning, I'm eating at night, or anything like that.
Yeah, it's really just kind of being like, because we're so busy and we're so moving around constantly that we can kind of let our nutrition and our eating kind of go to the wayside. And then you come to the gym and you're working super hard, and then you look at your trainer and you go, why aren't I losing any weight?
Right.
It's like, well, you're probably not eating enough. Right? You're working super hard, and your body's under stress constantly, and then you're not helping it out.
Right.
So you can never recover. And
that is such a good point. So that's the other thing, that if you're struggling to lose weight, a lot of people cut too much.
Yes.
So there's this fun spot in your body where you need to eat enough to lose weight and not lose muscle. This idea of starvation mode is that if I don't eat enough, I'm not going to lose weight. That's actually not the case. You're not going to lose the weight you want.
Yes.
You're going to lose water and you're going to lose body fat. So the way I like to describe to my clients is, when you're stressed and cold, what do you hold on to? Warm and fluffy.
Absolutely.
And that's going to be your fat.
Yeah.
So people will cut too much, and so they either lose muscle, or when they're hungry, they are ravenous because their body's like, you are starving me.
Absolutely.
So the idea of eating enough to lose weight is something that like clients really struggle with that at first.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, like looking at somebody and telling them that like they have to eat more, in their mind is so counterintuitive, and they're like, do you really know what you're talking about? And I'm like, just trust me.
Right.
Please.
Well, and I was that person.
Yeah.
10 years ago, I would restrict and all that, and then I added about 800 calories a day and lost 10 pounds.
It's crazy.
And it was a mind switch for a while of like, this feels like too much, because we're always told to do less.
Absolutely.
But it's just so different.
And like, your body is supposed to operate in a certain way.
Yes.
And when it can't operate in a certain way, the system doesn't communicate properly.
Right.
So like, if you're not hitting all the markers, mental, social, environmental, and physical, if all those aren't kind of almost working together, you're not gonna lose weight or feel the best that you feel.
Right.
Because your body is worried and stressed about so many other things that it can't lose the weight.
Right. And then the other thing is, everybody's body is different.
Absolutely.
Mitch is a 20-something, 26?
25.
25-year-old male, 38-year-old female. We're maybe about the same height. That's the most we have in common.
Right.
But outside of that, his caloric needs are very different. He has more muscle mass, and should, than I do.
Yeah.
So he needs more calories to sustain than I do. And that's what they want to look at, like, well, what do you do? Well, I'm 7 inches taller than you, so you should not be eating what I'm eating. So
yeah, and like, I feel like, especially on my Instagram and like when I post content, like I don't like to post about food,
right?
Because like, I just like, I know it sounds annoying, but like, I really just kind of eat whatever I want,
right?
Like, because and that's not to go say like I don't work super hard, like I'm squatting almost 500 pounds, like I'm moving weight, like I have a lot of strength, so like I can do that,
right?
But someone who's not in my position might see what I'm eating and think like, oh, I can do that and lose weight. Like, you probably can't.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But it's not that you're not aware of what you're eating either.
No,
that's the
my
other
God,
thing.
absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
Well, and that's the same with me. I don't eat meat. I don't push that on other people because that's a choice for me, my digestion and all of that. But it's something that, like, I will post if my meal's pretty because I'm proud of it.
Yeah, right.
But it's not because I think everybody should eat it. And that's where people, like, there's a little misconception online, like, oh, they eat, a big one right now is cream of wheat with protein powder. Like, you have to eat that in the morning. No, that's disgusting. You don't have to, or I never will.
Yeah, right.
But finding what works for you. So the word diet is, like, my visceral reaction right there. Right. Don't like it because, one, the diet industry is made for you to fail. There's this awesome podcast out there called Maintenance Phase where they debunk diets, and one of their biggest things is their diet industry is that the diet didn't fail, but you can't do the diet, so you failed because it's so stringent.
Yes, so true.
And so restrictive.
Yes. So
that is the thing is, if you are trying to lose weight, you're not going to full-on restriction.
Absolutely.
That's huge.
Huge.
Yeah.
And to kind of build off what you said, like I had written a note, like diets are finite and like they end, whereas and like you obviously don't end when the diet ends. Right. and they are restrictive, and then you end up giving up, and then you've built absolutely no skills, and you have no habits to carry you, and then that's why you put on the weight.
Yes.
Right? Like, say you get on Mediterranean, or you hop on keto, or what have you, it doesn't matter. You lose all this weight, and then you get off because you built no skills, and it ends, and then you just put all that weight on.
Right.
It's just a cycle.
Right. And most people who do those diets were considered more of a crash diet, put on that weight and more.
Absolutely.
Right, because you took out, a lot of the times, a food group tends to be carbohydrates. Yeah, carbs. Yeah, people don't love carbs, and that's been a thing that it's cycled. We had Atkins, now it's keto.
Yeah.
Oh, there'll be another one.
And the thing with carbohydrates, it's so interesting, because I had just learned about it, not super recently, but recent enough, and, telling people they get so surprised when I tell them that, like, okay, like, you lost, like, that 5-10 pounds in that first 2 weeks because you literally just cut back on carbs.
Right.
Because for every like 1 gram of carb digested and collected in your body, you hold on to around 3 to 4 grams of water.
Yep.
So it's literally you just dropping water.
Right.
It's not that you lost the weight, it's just you restricting your carbs.
And that's why a lot of those diets that came out seem so great at the beginning. South Beach is like no carbs for the first 2 weeks. You can lose up to 14 pounds of water.
Right.
You're also in a huge calorie deficit, which is you're taking a lot less in than you're working out. So you're going to lose some, but it's not going to be the weight you want. You're not losing the body fat. You may have not been like, I lost 14 pounds, but aesthetically, I don't feel like I did.
Yeah, because you just lost your water. You're just drier than you were prior.
Right, and carbohydrates give us energy.
Yeah.
They're literally our biggest energy source. Like, they fuel your brain. They are great for you. They're not all made equally, and there's definitely some you should focus on: your fruits, your vegetables, your whole grains. But they are not demonized. They're not as bad as they've been demonized over the past few years.
I agree, and it's really, like, it's difficult because, like, I'm big on carbs. Like, I know for me, I could do a super low fat diet, but if I don't have, like, at least, higher range of carbs, I'm, like, can't function.
I'm a mean person.
It's straight up, like, and it's just because when you're lifting, it's the first energy source that we go to.
Yes.
If we don't consume carbs right after training, our recovery rate is increased by tenfold.
Right.
It takes us so much longer to recover if we don't consume carbs after lifting.
Right.
And if you're just always restricting, then you're just kind of spinning your tires, and you may have been going to the gym for 4 years and you look exactly the same as you did when you walked in. It's probably why.
Right.
It's not in a vacuum, but it could be part of the reason.
Right. But that's that brain fog. That's everything. Absolutely. When you're not focusing. Your brain literally craves it.
Yes.
It needs it to recover.
100%.
And then that's also that if you get lightheaded while you're working out, it's because you depleted your carbs.
Yes, absolutely.
That's exactly why. So, like, they're so important, they're so good for you, and most of them are water dense and nutritious. Your fruits and vegetables are great carbs. Bananas are fine.
Yes,
please eat the banana.
Please. It's got potassium too, so you won't cramp up.
Yeah, that's a big question I always get. But what about bananas?
Yeah.
So technically, yes, bananas are a more calorie dense fruit than all the other ones. But outside of that, it's a great snack that fills you up. It's got potassium, and it is going to give you energy.
Yeah, just eat the banana.
Just
eat it. And if you spend more time stressing out and worrying about what you're eating, that can actually be even worse than if you had just eaten it and not worried.
Yep.
Just eat the food you want to.
Right.
Right? Like.
Right. So, and if you're looking to find out what a calorie deficit is, there's a lot that goes into that, because weight loss too is a slight calorie deficit. It is not thousands of calories off of what you need.
No.
So if you're in our competition, you did your in-body. And on there is your basal metabolic rate. That is one of the ways you can calculate your calorie deficit too, because it does depend on how much muscle you have, is how much you should be able to eat. But you don't want to go into a huge deficit where you're starving. You want to find a good range that works for you, and just that number might not be exactly it. It is your energy in there. It is your age as a woman, as a man too, because your metabolism changes. It is if you're hitting menopause. There's all sorts of factors that ends up being you figuring it out through a little bit of trial and error.
Absolutely. Like, you are your biggest advocate. You are your biggest scientist. Like, as trainers, we can only guide you so much. we can put you in the right direction, but like the saying, like lead a horse to water. It doesn't mean it's going to drink.
Right.
And if you're looking for the calorie deficit, there are calculators online that are really accurate, and all the information that you have with your InBody is going to make that equation just that much more accurate when you do and you go and you look and you try to figure that out.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about not your scale weight not changing, but changing your body composition, or even gaining weight but losing body fat, because that's something that I feel like that misconception is in there as well.
Yeah, for sure. So when changing your composition, but maybe the scale weight isn't moving, that probably just means that you're putting on muscle. And muscle is far more dense than fat is. It's an active tissue. It holds on. 75% of muscle tissue is water versus fat, adipose tissue is around 25% water. So when we're putting on, muscle and the scale isn't moving, or the scale is even going up, that just means that you're putting on better tissue. And in that case, your percent body fat is also going down because it's a ratio between your fat mass and your lean mass. Right? So it just because your scale weight is going up or it's not moving doesn't mean that you're not getting healthier on the inside.
Right. And there's different things than just that bathroom scale. And that's where, one is like, how do you look and feel? That's 100%. Huge for me. As much as I love seeing numbers and things change with my clients, like I feel better. They're glowing. They're excited. And it's like, how do your clothes fit? That's another great one.
It's a great proxy for change.
Right.
Asking someone, like, do you feel stronger? Is a great proxy for muscle growth. Like, even if it's maybe not be showing on the scale, or it might not be showing in your clothes or whatever, but if you're stronger and you can do more weight than you did 2 weeks ago, that's a great proxy for change that I like to look for.
And I even have to remind myself of that as somebody who has been doing this for a long time. Because maybe something else didn't change, but I increased my deadlift by 50 pounds last year. Like, that's a huge one. So taking those and reminding myself, like, hey, that's a huge win. And reminding yourself of the other things you're doing, which is leading to this, too. You just might not see it on that bathroom scale.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And if you're really if you're struggling with weight loss and you're really trying super hard, and maybe, the scale goes up and then it goes down for a little while, then it goes back up, it's really important to, if you feel comfortable with it, the scale weight is still important because we can track your higher highs and your lower lows, right? So if you're losing weight, say you start at 200 pounds and every week or every day you're weighing yourself and your lows are getting lower and your highs are getting lower and you're constantly pushing down, they're still allowing for fluctuation, but you're constantly losing. Even if it's marginal over time, you're still heading in the right direction. You're still trending.
Yeah, and that weight loss journey, it's the idea is that it's just going to do this. I'm going to do the same thing every day. I'm going to eat the same, and it's going to happen. But it is 100% like a wave.
It undulates.
Yeah, it's
big
like
time.
But it's like anything in life. If you're working on something, there'll be ups and downs. But the end goal takes time, and the work makes it worth it.
Yeah, and if you're looking at people on social media who are like ripped and they're sick and they're like, you're looking at their one perfect moment that they hired a professional photographer and they've got the video edited and all that stuff. That is just one moment.
Right.
And then you're also looking at the culmination of like years and 1,000, 10,000 hours of work that have gone into that you didn't see.
Right.
And you're just starting at the very beginning.
Right. Well, and comparison is the thief of joy.
Absolutely.
That is like one of my favorite quotes. Because we have awesome fit athletes in this club.
Yes.
But the fact that, like, the rarity that one of them is my body type, that is 5'10", that is 38 years old, and that has all the injuries that I've had is slim to none. So there's no point.
Yes.
That competition isn't, we even talk about it with like deadlifting, like ranges of motion makes it different.
It's totally different. Like squatting, like for example, if we're going on the lifts, like if somebody has a longer femur or a longer torso, like everybody's gonna be positioned differently. Like there's no one true squat and there's no one true body type.
Right. Exactly. So it's gotta be for you internally and comparing you to you. what
for sure.
you can do and all of that. And that's something that's hard when social media is in your face constantly with these girls where you can see every defined ab, which is extremely lean and probably very cold.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And, like, you know, women, like, we see it on the in-bodies, like, you know, men, it's a lot easier for men to lose fat, and it's a lot easier for men to stay leaner for a longer period of time, whereas women need to hold on to a little bit more fat because, you know, hormones and things like
and
that.
Babies and all that.
Exactly, all that stuff that I don't necessarily know that much about, but...
No, and I think that's, too, is, like, we all have essential fat, but women do have to have more.
Oh, for sure. Like, you guys are averaging around anywhere between 28 and, what is it, 18%?
18 to 28 is the ideal, yes.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Whereas men, it's 20 to 10.
Exactly.
Like, you know, so it's completely different. Like, I know that women will probably beat themselves up over it.
Right.
But it's like, that's how your body was designed.
Right. And if we're going into that essential fat, like, so if you're looking at like a competitive bodybuilder for women, they probably get down to 9 to 11%, which is in their essential fats, which means they're not absorbing the vitamins that they need. Like, we don't need or want to be that lean.
But they're also only that lean for like
6 weeks.
Exactly.
Yes.
Like, that's like, you call that stage lean. Like, they're in competition mode.
Right.
Like, otherwise, they're walking around with fat and they're full.
Right. And then also knowing that there's like these pictures online too of like what different body fat percentages would look like, which is not accurate as well.
Oh, it's completely subjective.
Some people you can see their abs at a certain percentage, other ones you can't. That's not how it works. It depends on your muscle. It depends on all of that.
Absolutely, right? Because like I think we mentioned it earlier. Like, you can't spot lose fat.
No.
You can put on muscle in specific areas. That you can absolutely do.
Right.
And that can be a proxy for fat loss in that area. But you can't go, I'm just going to lose fat.
Right.
Say, I need to lose fat around my stomach. I don't care about anywhere else. That's probably going to be the last place you lose your fat.
Right. And everybody carries fat differently.
So true.
Yes. Awesome. So if you had a client coming to you and, you know, you've taught them all of this, what is like the one lesson you really want them to leave, like knowing and practicing at home?
Yeah, so I would really tell them, especially if nutrition-based, I would really practice the habit of mindful eating. Through mindful eating, you can then build the skill of understanding what your own personal fullness cues are and what your own hunger cues are, right? Because if you're mindfully eating, you're setting up an environment where it's calm, you're focused, you're not distracted by things around you, you're able to take a bite, chew, relax, put the fork down, take a sip of water, breathe, maybe watch your show if you're watching TV while you eat.
Talk to who you're with.
Exactly, whatever. And then as you're doing that, you're slowly going to realize, like, okay, like, I don't have to eat this entire plate that's in front of me because now I'm full.
Right.
And that's just it. Now I have leftovers later, or I can throw my food away.
Right.
Because that's all I needed it for.
Right.
And then that builds the skill of understanding, okay, I'm full when I'm halfway done through this plate.
Right.
And
I made too much. Yes.
Exactly. And I don't have to eat all of this. And I think that's a huge roadblock for a lot of people is being like, okay, well, I made all this food, so now I have to finish it.
Yeah.
Which gets you into deep trouble after years of prolonged, like, you know, not abuse, but like you're forcing yourself to eat when you don't have to.
Right. There was that thing as a kid, you have to clean your plate. My grandmother, love her. I couldn't leave her house without eating 2 muffins, having a glass of orange juice, glass of milk, both 2 drinks I did not like. So I would leave walking down the street to my mom's house while I'm bloated and all that.
Yeah.
But it was that conception when really you can make what you need to feel good. Absolutely. One of my big goals is like, how do I want to feel after this meal? I want to feel
100%.
Satisfied. I want to have enjoyed it, but I don't want to feel like I have a food baby hanging out for the next 3 hours.
And you shouldn't.
Exactly.
You shouldn't.
Yeah, like, that conception, especially like on Thanksgiving, like we don't need to eat as much as humanly possible.
Right? Like we're not in like survival mode. We're not eating because we haven't eaten in months.
Right.
You know, like, and it goes into then, like you said, like, you know, focusing on how you felt before that meal, how you felt during the meal, and how you felt after. Because you should be leaving, like, maybe you entered the meal a little bit anxious. Okay, how did that affect how you ate?
Right.
Because there are triggers that we have that could happen hours before. Like, I could have a horrible session with a client and then go and binge eat at Five Guys
right.
2 hours later.
Right.
You know, like, and then leave feeling really full and dragging and bloated, and then I'm even more anxious than I was when I started the meal,
Right.
and then it just cycles.
Right, and food should be enjoyable.
100%.
I think that's the other thing, that when people are in this kind of journey, they're like, okay, I have to go bland, I have to go all vegetables. Not everything needs to be made out of cauliflower.
Oh, it doesn't.
But still, like, you can have a little dessert, you can have that, and still enjoy your food. I think that's a big thing too. Like, immediately when I start talking about, well, I eat salads, I'm like, so there's nothing wrong with salads. I love a crazy salad with fruit and all this stuff in it. But I'm not just doing lettuce, a little bit of protein, and some dressing.
Yeah.
Like, yes, have a salad, but you can make a burger, maybe do a smaller patty, do all of these different things, and enjoy your food.
Like, there's ways to improve meals. Right. Like, you could take your meal from, let's say, a level 1 would be like, you know, what you always eat. It could be a burger, a greasy burger with fries, whatever. That's a level 1 meal. Then you could find ways to improve that. Instead of getting a bread patty, I put it on lettuce.
Right.
I add more vegetables to it. I don't eat the fries, and instead I have carrots or something like that. Like, there are little ways to improve your meals without taking them away.
Right. Absolutely. So I love pizza. I love it.
Right.
So I will either do the cauliflower crust, which that is the thing I'm okay with being out of cauliflower, or I eat one piece.
Exactly.
Like, it doesn't mean that food's gone in your life forever. That's what I always tell my clients. If I said you can never have pizza again, you will dream of pizza tonight, because that made it that, like, bad thing.
And I'm gonna want to build off that. Like, stop applying morality to your food.
Oh my gosh.
Like, there's nothing bad about the donut. The donut didn't do anything to you.
Right.
Like, if you really want that donut that day, just eat it. There's nothing wrong with it.
Get the craving away.
Yeah, or just take a bite and put it down.
Right.
You just get the taste in your mouth, and you're like, all right, that was cool.
Right.
And
be aware.
Yeah.
I enjoyed that moment. I had that donut. Now if I eat pretty consistently healthy after that donut didn't ruin anything.
No, I'm good.
Yeah.
So
I love to talk to my clients, and I call them detours, because a lot of people kind of beat themselves up when they don't eat on plan.
Yeah.
Because life doesn't go as planned at all. Or I've made a meal and I've taken a bite and said, wow, you really didn't do well with this one.
What were we doing here?
What was your thought this morning at 4 a.m.?
Right.
So I have ordered food instead of eating probably the healthier option. But the rest of my day is healthy. So if you're driving to work and there's traffic, I can't just go home.
No.
That's not allowed. I've asked. It's
still,
not okay. So I have to go to work. So I just go around it. I deal with that. So maybe it's that unhealthy meal. Maybe it's a donut. And then I just continue on what I'm doing. And that's the best way. It doesn't stop your day. Yeah, maybe it changes a tiny bit, but you're still going to work.
Yes.
Exactly. And so that's what I think of when you do off your planner. You, like, stop making it a guilty thing. These things happen, and then we continue.
Or you can have that programmed.
Right.
You're not going off plan. You're programming that into it, so then you're not going off anything.
I hate calling it a cheat, but planned cheats.
Yeah.
And it's not cheating. I don't believe in cheat days or cheat meals. It's the meal you're having in that
Just
moment.
Eat it.
Right. But if you're planning, you know it's going to happen.
Yeah.
I'm going to have a burger tonight. Like, so you're just going to have that burger.
You're going to have it.
You did not gain that weight in a day or in a meal. You're not going to lose it in a meal. And that's huge. Like, I messed up totally. I had a group, I'm off the rails. Well, you're next to them. It's okay. Just you're still on the rails. You just, like, slow down a little bit. It's okay.
You're fine. Like, I promise. And like I said earlier, like, the more you stress about it, it's just the worse it's going to be.
Right. And it makes that food, like, this stigma, like that, like, don't touch the red button. You know how much I want to push that red button every single time?
Absolutely.
Right. So, no, I think that's so true, and that's gives us those unhealthy attitudes about food.
Absolutely.
Or unhealthy relationships.
Yes.
When food is healing, food is a beautiful thing. I mean, I love food. I get to talk about it professionally, which I love.
Yeah.
But we don't want to make it into this bad thing.
No, absolutely, because they're like, the food didn't do anything to you.
No.
It's not. It doesn't have any morality. It can't think for itself. You're applying that
right
to it, and you're almost projecting onto that, which is then coming back on you and making you feel more anxious than you were prior.
And that's the other thing we do is we try to make a healthy version of every food, but if you just had that one donut, you probably would not want the 6 healthy ones.
Exactly, and that kind of is also the same idea as like you debating and arguing with yourself of not coming into the gym, and then you spending a half hour sitting in the parking lot debating whether you're going to come in, and if you had just come in, you could already leave by now.
Right.
It's the same idea.
Right. It's okay. Yeah. 100%. All right. So we have all this information out there. Like, nothing that you and I talked about can't be found somewhere. It's internet. I mean, you and I are a lot of self-taught, too. We're actually pretty similar.
Yes.
But let's say you know all this, you see all of this, and nothing is still, like, nothing's changing. Like, your next step is to talk to somebody who knows what they're doing. Right. And, like, yes, this is a plug for what we do, but, like, we have trainers with a background in weight training, with a background in nutrition. We have dietitians, and you have people that can help you out. It is rare that you're the person who just can't lose weight.
Absolutely. Like, all bodies operate the same. I mean, not all the same, but, like, the principles still apply. It's calories in, calories out.
Right.
But that is the simple answer, right? And that works. But like we said earlier, mental, social, environmental, and physical factors all play a role in that. So instead of you spinning your tires, why not come and talk to one of us where we can help you and we can guide you in the right direction.
Right, and the right professionals for it. Your doctor is great. Your PCP is awesome, but they don't have the nutritional training or the fitness training. Absolutely. So going to the people that this is what they do. This is what they love and all of that. We have those people available with memberships here, with our program and all of that, but it is just important to also sometimes to riff off of. Like, you know, we do that as trainers.
Absolutely.
Mitch and I will talk about our lifts and be like, I'm stuck here. And he's like, well, did you try this? And I'm like, oh, that's a cool idea. And that's how we get better at things too, is giving each other advice.
Exactly. And constantly talking and, you know, trying not to have a bias when you come into conversations. Like, if you are so convinced that intermittent fasting works and you're so dead on and nothing's working and you're still spinning your tires, but it's not the intermittent fasting, maybe try to come in with an open mind to the conversation and to be open to maybe think like, okay, well, this hasn't been working for me, so maybe it's not working.
Yeah, it's a constant thing I have to like, I do all this stuff and it doesn't work. Well, so if it's not working, like, it's like trying to put that circle into the square, the square into the circle.
Square peg,
It's just not going to happen. So let's like just try to adjust. And it doesn't mean a 180. It doesn't mean you turn like a whole different thing. Like small adjustments, small changes work. In our weight training, when I'm trying to get stronger, I don't all of a sudden change everything I do. I'm going to adjust my hand position. I'm going to adjust my reps.
Absolutely.
I'm going to adjust little things rather than huge changes too, because it's those small habits that we create over time that are sustainable.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Because if you like you know, when you're sailing a boat, if you change your direction slightly, and if you look way down, your end point is going to be drastically different than if you just changed a few degrees, right? Instead of staying on the same route.
Right. Absolutely. All right. Well, is there anything else, like anything you'd want to leave with or anything about you want to tell everybody before we get off today?
If anybody's listening to this and any of this stuck with you, please share. You can follow me on Instagram at MitchGetFit. And also, if you see me around in the club, please feel free to come up and ask me any questions that you have. I would love to schedule any kind of training or consultations or anything that I can do to help you, because that's really what we're here for. That's my main goal, is to be your partner and be your friend and help guide you in the right direction that you can finally see success that you've been trying to this for years now.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, definitely follow him. He has a lot of great content. I definitely enjoy it. You can also follow me at Honestly Lisa B, or us at the Boulder Side of Wellness for the podcast. Thank you so much for coming on today.
Yeah, of course. It was really fun. Thank you.